They noticed him because he did not belong. A single father in a VIP lounge, holding a child who kept asking for water, wearing a jacket that had seen too many mornings. People watched him with the soft confidence of those who knew the rules and had never needed to question them. Someone laughed, not loudly. Loud laughter was unnecessary. The man did not respond. He kept his eyes on the floor, then on his daughter's shoes, adjusting the loose strap with careful fingers. He was used to waiting, used to being misread. Across the room, a door opened for someone important, the kind of person whose arrival rearranged the air, the kind of moment that could not be undone. Before it ended, one person would be seen differently, and someone else would be unable to return to who they were before. If this story holds your attention, stay with it. It unfolds quietly, but it does not let go. The lounge was quiet in the way expensive places often were. Not silent, but controlled. Sound softened by carpet. Voices kept low, not out of courtesy, but expectation. Everyone inside knew why they were there. They belonged to a category that rarely questioned itself. The man entered without announcing anything. No hesitation, no apology. Just a pause at the door long enough to take in the room. Then a step forward with his daughter close at his side. He carried a worn backpack on one shoulder. The zipper was partly broken, held together by a small metal clip. He adjusted it once, then let it be. They moved along the edge of the room. He did not scan faces. He scanned space, where chairs were placed, where bags blocked walkways, where the exits were. He chose a seat near the wall, not because it was hidden, but because it interfered the least. He placed the backpack at his feet and nudged it inward with his shoe. His daughter climbed onto the chair beside him. Her legs did not reach the floor. She swung them once, then stopped when he rested a hand lightly on her knee. Not a warning, a reminder. Around them, people continued what they had been doing. A man in a pressed jacket leaned back and stretched his legs into the aisle. A woman scrolled on her phone, her bag occupying the empty seat next to her. Someone laughed softly at something said just loud enough to be heard by the person beside them. The man took out their boarding passes. He checked them once. Then again, not because he doubted them, but because checking gave his hands something to do. He folded them carefully and returned them to his jacket pocket. His daughter tugged at his sleeve. "Can I have water?" she asked. He nodded. Stood. Walked to the refreshment counter without hurry. He waited his turn even though no one else was there. When he poured the water, he filled the cup only halfway. Enough to help, not enough to spill. He brought it back and placed it in her hands, watching until she took a sip. "Slow," he said quietly. She nodded and drank like someone trying very hard to do something right. From across the room, someone noticed them. It was not deliberate at first, just a flicker of attention that lingered longer than it needed to. The man felt it without looking. He adjusted the strap of the backpack again, then rested both hands on his knees. He was used to this part, the waiting before a judgment formed fully, the space where people decided who someone was without needing confirmation. He did not stiffen. He did not relax. He stayed as he was. A staff member passed by, slowed, looked at him, then at the child. The pause was brief, professional. Nothing was said. The staff member moved on. The daughter leaned closer to him, her shoulder pressed against his arm. "Is this the right place?" she asked. "Yes," he said. She looked around. "Why is it so quiet?" "So people can rest," he said. She accepted that, took another sip of water. The man shifted his feet slightly, bringing them flat against the floor. His jacket brushed the chair as he adjusted his position. The fabric was thin at the elbows, worn soft. He smoothed it once, then stopped. There was no point in pretending it was anything else. A few seats away, someone leaned toward a companion and said something under their breath. The sound did not travel far, but the shape of the words was familiar. The companion smiled, not kindly, but with the ease of agreement. The man did not react. He watched his daughter instead. Her shoes were loose. One strap had come undone. He bent forward and fixed it, his finger steady. He pulled the strap through the buckle and pressed it flat, then tapped it once to make sure it held. When he straightened, the room felt tighter, not louder, just more aware. the kind of awareness that came before correction. He met no one's eyes. He did not lower his head either. He existed in the space as if that alone was enough. The lounge continued on. Cups clinked softly. Pages turned. A television mounted on the wall played with the sound off. Time moved the way it always did in places like this. Slowly, but forward. Nothing had happened yet. But the balance was already beginning to strain. He remained seated long after his daughter finished the water. She placed the empty cup on the small table between the chairs, careful not to tip it. He noticed, reached over, and slid it farther back so it would not be in the way of anyone passing. The movement was small, almost unconscious. The lounge had its own rhythm. People stood only when they needed something, and even then, they moved with the assurance that no one would question why. The man did not share that assurance. Not here, but his body did not show uncertainty either. It held something else habit. He sat upright, shoulders relaxed but ready. When someone walked past, his eyes lifted just long enough to track their path, then lowered again. He kept his hands visible, resting open on his thighs. Not for politeness, for readiness. His daughter leaned back in her chair and looked at the ceiling. "How long?" she asked. "Not long," he said. She swung her legs again, slower this time. One shoe brushed his ankle. He did not move it away. The man across the room stood and took a phone call. He spoke in low, confident sentences, turning his back slightly, as if to shield the conversation. The father listened without meaning to, not to the words, but to the shifts in tone. He noticed when the man's voice tightened, when it relaxed again. Old habits surfaced quietly, without permission. The father adjusted his position so his daughter was closer to the wall and he was closer to the aisle. It was subtle. Anyone watching would have assumed it was for comfort. It was not. A staff member returned, pushing a cart of folded linens. She slowed again when she reached their row. Her eyes moved from the father to the child, then to the backpack at his feet. "Sir," she began, then paused. He looked up. "Yes." She hesitated, then shook her head slightly. "Nothing. Let me know if you need anything." He nodded once. "Thank you." She moved on, her cart rolling softly across the carpet. The daughter watched her go. "She thought we were in the wrong place," she said, not accusing. Just observing. The father did not correct her. He reached into the backpack and took out a small book. The cover was creased. He handed it to her without comment. She opened it and began to read, mouthing the words silently. Around them, comfort was on display. Shoes set aside, jackets draped over armrests, phones left unattended on tables. The father noticed all of it, not with judgment, with familiarity. He had learned long ago that ease was a signal, one he did not often share. His attention never fully left the room. When someone laughed again, sharper, this time his jaw tightened slightly. He released it just as quickly. He had learned what reacting cost. He had also learned what silence protected. The role he carried did not announce itself. It lived in how he noticed things others ignored, how he made space before being asked, how he stayed alert even while still. His daughter turned a page. The sound was louder than it needed to be. She froze, then looked up at him. "It's okay," he said. She nodded and kept reading. The lounge accepted none of this. It did not reward it. It did not acknowledge it. Power here was measured differently, in cards and access and clothing that did not fray. The father knew this. He did not resent it. He simply did not belong to it. An announcement crackled overhead. A delay. Nothing urgent. But something shifted when it ended. People adjusted. Some sighed. Some checked their phones again. The father stood briefly and stretched his legs, then sat back down. His daughter looked up. "Are we leaving?" she asked. "Not yet," he said. He sat again, closer to the edge of the chair now. Waiting had taken on a different shape. Not passive, not patient, watchful. The room did not notice the change, but it was there. The delay lengthened. Time in the lounge began to feel less like waiting and more like exposure. People shifted positions, crossed and uncrossed legs, reclaimed personal space that had slowly drifted outward. The room tightened, not with urgency, but with attention. The father felt it settle on him in small increments. It started with looks that did not move away quickly enough, then with bodies angling just slightly, as if aligning themselves away from him would clarify something. No one spoke to him directly. They did not need to. The conclusions were already forming. His daughter closed her book and placed it back in the backpack. She did it carefully, sliding it into the same pocket it had come from. She zipped it halfway, then stopped when the zipper caught. He leaned over and freed it with 2 fingers. The metal clip held. He tested it once. "Thank you," she said. He nodded. A man nearby stood and stretched. His shoe brushed against the father's backpack. He looked down at it, then at the father. "Careful," the man said. His tone was light, almost joking. The father moved the bag farther under his chair. "Sorry," he said. The word landed heavier than it should have. He felt it as soon as it left his mouth. Not regret, just awareness. He did not look up to see the man's reaction. His daughter noticed. "You didn't do anything," she said quietly. "It's okay," he said. She frowned, then looked away. A woman across the aisle leaned toward her companion. She did not lower her voice enough. "They really should check," she said. Her companion followed her gaze. "I know." The father exhaled slowly through his nose. He kept his eyes forward. The urge to respond rose and passed. He had learned to let it do that. Learned that speaking often made things worse before they got better. He placed the hand on his daughter's shoulder. Not to stop her, to steady himself. She leaned into him. "Why are they looking at us?" she asked. "People look," he said. "It doesn't mean anything." She considered that. "It feels like it does." He did not answer right away. He adjusted the cuff of his sleeve instead, smoothing the worn fabric. "We're just waiting," he said, like everyone else. Another staff member approached, younger this time. He held the tablet and wore the practiced smile of someone trained to de-escalate without confrontation. "Sir," he said, "may I see your access?" The father reached into his jacket without hurry. He handed over the pass. The staff member studied it. His smile tightened, then loosened again. "Everything seems to be in order," he said, handing it back. "Enjoy your stay." "Thank you," the father said. The staff member walked away. The room did not relax. If anything, the check confirmed something unspoken, that the question had been valid, that the doubt had been reasonable. The father sat back. He felt the weight of his daughter against his side, the steady rise and fall of her breathing. He focused on that. An announcement sounded again. Another update. Another delay. Somewhere deeper in the lounge, a door opened. A cluster of staff moved with purpose. The tone of the room shifted, attention pulling toward the sound. The father noticed before anyone else did. The way people straightened. The way conversations stopped mid-sentence. Something important was arriving. He stood, not abruptly, not to be seen. He stood because standing gave him a better view, because something in his chest had tightened, the way it did when conditions changed. His daughter looked up at him. "Are we okay?" she asked. "Yes," he said. But he did not sit back down. The lounge held its breath. Silence this time was not enough. The door at the far end of the lounge opened wider this time. Not the casual swing of someone stepping in late, but a controlled opening held in place. 2 staff members moved first, clearing a path without speaking. A third followed, scanning the room with quick, practiced glances. Then the man they were making space for appeared. He was taller than most of them, even hunched slightly. One arm was held close to his body, supported by a dark sling that cut sharply against his tailored jacket. His face was pale, drawn tight around the eyes. Pain showed there, unhidden. But so did authority, the kind that did not need to announce itself. People stood without being told. Chairs shifted back. Conversations stopped fully now. Phones were lowered. The air rearranged itself around him. The father stayed where he was, standing but still. He did not move toward the scene. He did not move away either. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in focus on the man, but on the way the people around him moved. The injured man took a step forward, then another. His support adjusted too late. The man's weight shifted unevenly, his shoulder dipping. The father saw it before the staff did. He saw the angle of the foot, the slick line of the carpet where a drink had spilled earlier and not been fully dried. He saw how the injured arm tightened instinctively, how the body compensated in the wrong direction. He moved, not quickly, not loudly, just decisively. He stepped into the aisle, one hand lifting, palm open. "Careful," he said. The word landed late. The injured man's foot slipped anyway. Not a fall. Not yet. Just a loss of balance sharp enough to matter. The father closed the distance in 2 steps. He placed one hand lightly against the man's back, firm enough to stabilize, not enough to startle. With the other, he guided the man's uninjured arm toward the staff member closest to him. "Shift your weight," the father said. "Not that side." The staff member froze for half a second, startled by the interruption, then reacted. Another staff member moved in. The injured man exhaled sharply, his jaw tightening as he steadied himself. The room went still. Security responded late. 2 men stepped forward, hands already lifting in warning. "Sir," one of them said. The father stepped back immediately. He raised both hands to shoulder height, open. "He's hurt," the father said. His voice was even, not defensive. "The floor's slick." The injured man looked at him then. Really looked. His eyes moved from the father's hands to his face. They held there longer than expected. The staff member glanced down at the carpet, saw the faint darkened patch. Her face changed. "I didn't see that," she said. "No one did," the father said. Security hesitated. Authority was unclear for a moment, and in places like this, hesitation was rare. The injured man straightened as much as he could. He adjusted his sling with a sharp inhale. He waved one of the staff members back slightly, a small gesture, but unmistakable. "It's fine," he said. His voice was low, strained, but controlled. "He's right." The father nodded once. Nothing more. Security stepped back, though their eyes stayed on him. The staff resumed their positions, more alert now. The injured man was guided to a nearby seat, closer to the center of the lounge. The father returned to his place by the wall. He sat. He reached for his backpack and pulled it closer to his feet again. The movement grounded him. His daughter stared at him. "You touched him," she whispered. "Yes," he said. "Are we in trouble?" "I don't know," he said. She nodded, absorbing that. Around them, the lounge did not return to its earlier rhythm. People whispered now, but not with ease. Glances toward the father were different, less amused, less certain. The injured man sat, head tilted back briefly as if measuring pain. He spoke quietly with the staff. His gaze drifted once more across the room. It found the father again. The father met it this time. He did not look away. He did not straighten either. He held the look, then returned his attention to his daughter. He adjusted her chair so it was closer to his. No one laughed now. But no one spoke to him either. The balance had shifted, but it had not settled. The cost of stepping forward had not yet arrived. Time slowed after that, not in a dramatic way, just enough to make every movement feel observed. The injured man remained seated near the center of the lounge, surrounded now by a careful semicircle of staff. Their voices were low. Their attention was sharp. A phone appeared. Then another. Somewhere behind the scenes, a process had begun. The father felt it without looking. Systems always responded eventually. What mattered was how. He stayed seated. His posture did not change. He did not fold in on himself, but he did not expand either. His daughter shifted closer, her shoulder pressed firmly against his arm now. He placed his hand over hers, not to reassure her, to anchor himself. People avoided looking at him directly. When they did, they looked away quickly. The laughter from earlier did not return. Conversations resumed in fragments, unfinished. Someone stood and moved to a different seat, farther from the wall. A security guard walked past them once, slower than necessary. His gaze lingered on the father's backpack, on the father's hands, on the child. Then he moved on. The father tracked him until he was out of view. His daughter leaned in and spoke without lifting her head. "Are they mad at you?" she asked. "No," he said. "Are they mad at us?" He thought about that for a moment. He watched the injured man adjust his sling again, his face tightening as he did. He watched the staff respond instantly to the smallest shift in his posture. "They're just paying attention now," he said. She considered that. "I don't like it," she said. "I know," he said. She went quiet again. Minutes passed. Then more. The delay announcement repeated, updated, still vague. The father felt the edges of the situation sharpen. Attention had weight. It pressed down, even when nothing was said. A staff member approached at last. Not the same one as before. This one moved carefully, as if each step had been rehearsed. "Sir," she said, "may I speak with you for a moment?" The father looked at his daughter. She looked back at him. "Stay right here," he said. She nodded. He stood and followed the staff member a few steps away, not far, still within sight of his daughter. He stopped when she did. She kept her voice low. "We just need to document what happened." "I understand," he said. She glanced at her tablet. "You assisted our guest without being asked." "Yes," he said. "That could have escalated the situation." "It could have," he agreed. She looked up at him then, searching his face for something. He gave her nothing extra. "The floor was wet," he said. "He was hurt." She nodded slowly. "Yes, we've addressed that." Silence stretched between them. Not uncomfortable, just precise. "There may be follow-up," she said. "Okay," he said. She hesitated. "Thank you for your concern." He nodded once. When he returned to his seat, his daughter was standing. She climbed back into her chair quickly when she saw him. "They talked to you," she said. "Yes," he said. "Are we leaving?" "Not yet." She frowned. "I don't like waiting like this." He did not answer. He took her hand instead. Held it. The injured man stood again, slowly this time, supported on both sides. The staff parted around him. He paused, clearly in pain, then steadied himself. His eyes lifted, found the father again. The room followed his gaze. No one spoke. The injured man inclined his head slightly. Not a nod. Something more deliberate. His uninjured hand rose, fingers together. A brief, unmistakable salute. It was not large. It did not demand attention. But it carried weight. The room shifted. The staff noticed first, then security, then everyone else. The meaning traveled outward, quiet but fast. The father did not move. He did not respond in kind. He did not stand straighter. He did not look away either. He held the injured man's gaze for a moment longer, then lowered his eyes to his daughter. She was staring at the man, then at her father. "Why did he do that?" she asked. "He was saying thank you," the father said. "For what?" "For paying attention," he said. She thought about that. "You always do that." He did not answer. The injured man was guided away, through a different door this time. The lounge exhaled as he left. Conversation resumed, but differently now. Softer. Less certain. A few people looked at the father again. Their expressions had changed. Not admiration. Something closer to recalibration. A man who had laughed earlier cleared his throat and looked down at his phone. The woman who had spoken about checking access avoided the wall entirely. The father sat quietly. The attention faded, but it did not disappear. He felt the shape of it linger. The external consequence was still forming. Recognition had arrived, but it had not settled into anything useful yet. His daughter squeezed his hand. "He didn't do anything wrong," she said. "I know," he said. But knowing did not end the waiting. The lounge did not return to how it had been before. It could not. Something had been interrupted, and the interruption had left a mark. People moved differently now. More carefully. Conversations resumed, but they stayed low and contained, as if the room itself were listening. The father remained seated by the wall, his daughter's hand still in his. He loosened his grip when he realized how tightly he was holding it. She did not pull away. A staff member approached again. This time there was no tablet, No rehearsed tone. She stopped a few steps away, giving him space instead of claiming it. "Sir," she said, "we've taken care of the issue with the floor." He nodded. "Good." She hesitated, then added, "Our guest wanted me to let you know. He appreciated your help." The father looked up. "That's not necessary." "I understand," she said. She stood there for a moment longer than needed, then moved on. The father exhaled slowly. Recognition had a strange weight. It did not feel like relief. It felt like exposure in a different direction. He shifted in his chair and rested his forearms on his thighs, grounding himself in the pressure of his own body. His daughter watched him. "They're nicer now," she said. "They're quieter," he corrected. She tilted her head. "Is that better?" "Sometimes," he said. The delay announcement came again. Shorter this time, a window instead of an uncertainty. People began to gather their things. Jackets were put on. Phones were pocketed. The room prepared to move. The father did the same. He stood and lifted the backpack, settling it onto his shoulder. The strap cut across his jacket at an angle that had never quite fit right. He adjusted it once and left it. As they waited near the exit, a man stepped toward him. Middle-aged, well-dressed, the kind of person who took up space without noticing. "I just wanted to say," the man began, then stopped. His confidence faltered slightly. "That was well done." The father looked at him. Not with suspicion, not with gratitude, just attention. "I did what needed to be done," he said. The man nodded, unsure what to do with that. "Right, of course." He stepped back into the crowd. The father's daughter tugged on his sleeve. "Why didn't you say thank you?" she asked. "Because he wasn't thanking me," the father said. She considered that. "Then why did he talk to you?" The father thought for a moment. "Because something changed for him." "Did it change for you?" He looked down at her. Her eyes were steady, curious, not afraid. "No," he said. She nodded, satisfied with the answer. The exit door opened. People moved through in an orderly line. No one rushed. The father waited until there was space, then guided his daughter forward with a hand at her back. She walked beside him, her steps sure. As they passed the place where the injured man had sat, the father noticed a faint mark on the carpet, a darker patch where the spill had been. Already drying, already fading. Recognition worked the same way, he thought. It appeared sharply, then receded, leaving only a trace for those who had noticed. At the doorway, a security guard met his eyes, not the same one as before. This one nodded once, brief and professional. The father returned the nod. No more, no less. Outside the lounge, the noise of the terminal pressed in. Louder, less controlled. Announcements overlapped. People hurried. The world resumed its usual pace. The father stopped just beyond the threshold. He crouched slightly and adjusted his daughter's jacket, zipping it up against the draft. She lifted her arms to help him, then dropped them when he finished. "Dad," she said, "are we special?" He paused. The question landed heavier than it sounded. "No," he said finally. "We're just careful." She thought about that as they started walking again. Behind them, the lounge doors closed. Inside, the seats would fill again. The rules would reassert themselves. The memory of the interruption would soften, then blur. But for the father, something had shifted. Not in how others saw him, but in how clearly he saw the cost of being noticed. Recognition had not changed who he was. It had only confirmed what he already carried. And that, he knew, would demand something in return. The gate area was crowded, restless in a way the lounge had never been. People stood shoulder to shoulder, checking screens, adjusting bags, marking their place in line with practiced impatience. The father and his daughter stopped just short of the crowd, letting it settle before stepping into it. A uniformed airline representative approached them. She did not smile. She did not frown either. She spoke with the measured calm of someone trained to deliver options without implying outcomes. "Sir," she said, "may I have a moment?" The father nodded. He rested a hand lightly on his daughter's shoulder. "We've been notified about an incident in the lounge," the representative said. "Nothing negative, just documentation." I understand, he said. She glanced at her screen. Because of your assistance, there's been a note placed on your reservation. He waited. We can move you and your daughter to an earlier boarding group, she continued, and there's an offer to reassign your seats if you'd prefer more space. The father looked past her, at the line forming near the desk. People shifting forward, inch by inch. He imagined the change taking shape: faster boarding, easier seats, fewer looks, a smoother passage through the rest of the day. His daughter looked up at him. Is that good? She asked. It could be, he said. The representative waited, still impatient. This was not pressure. It was opportunity. The father thought about the way the room had shifted when the salute happened, how quickly assumptions had reversed, how easily doors opened once someone important had pointed. He shook his head. No, thank you, he said. We're fine where we are. The representative blinked once, surprised. Are you sure? Yes, he said. She nodded and tapped her screen. Very well. She moved on. His daughter frowned. Why didn't you say yes? He adjusted the strap of his backpack. Because we didn't come here for that. For what? For being noticed, he said. She was quiet as they stepped into line. The crowd pressed in, reclaiming its rhythm. No one made space for them. No one looked twice. After a moment, she said, But you helped. Yes, he said. And he thanked you. Yes. Then why not take it? He thought about how to answer. He watched the line move forward, one small step at a time. Because if I take it, he said, it means I only belong when someone says I do. She looked ahead, then back at him. Do we belong anyway? He placed a hand on her back and guided her forward as the line advanced. Yes, he said, but it doesn't always come with benefits. She considered that. That's not fair. No, he said. It isn't. They boarded with their group. They took their assigned seats. The space was tight. The overhead bins were already full. He lifted the backpack and slid it under the seat in front of him, careful not to bump anyone. His daughter buckled herself in. She looked at him with quiet seriousness. I'm glad you didn't take it, she said. He paused. Why? Because it would feel like a trick, she said. He held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. Outside the window, the plane began to move, slowly at first, then with purpose. The cost had been paid in something small but real. Convenience, ease, a moment of elevation. What remained was heavier. But it was his to carry. The plane leveled off. The initial tension of ascent faded into a steady hum that filled the cabin evenly, without preference. Lights dimmed slightly. People settled into their routines. Screens flicked on, trays lowered, conversations resumed in murmurs. The father adjusted his seatbelt once, then left it alone. His daughter leaned her head against the side of the seat and closed her eyes. He did not tell her to sleep. He let her decide. In the lounge, he had stayed still to avoid being noticed. Here he moved when he needed to. He reached down and pulled the backpack closer with his foot, then checked the pocket where their documents were kept. He did not check them twice this time. Once was enough. A flight attendant passed. She paused, not out of suspicion, but routine. Can I get you anything? She asked. Water, please, he said. When she returned, he thanked her. He handed the cup to his daughter when she opened her eyes, and she drank without being reminded to go slow. Outside the window, the sky stretched clean and uninterrupted. No reflections, no faces, just distance. The father let his shoulders rest fully against the seat. It was a small change, but a real one. In the lounge, he had kept himself ready, contained. Here he allowed himself to occupy the space without measuring it first. His daughter watched him. You look different, she said. How? He asked. Like you're not waiting, she said. He thought about that, about how much of his day, his life, had been shaped by waiting. For permission, for correction, for someone to decide whether he fit. Maybe I'm just sitting, he said. She smiled slightly and closed her eyes again. The plane continued forward, indifferent to what had happened before it took off. The moment in the lounge had already begun to dissolve elsewhere, reduced to a brief note, a memory for a few, a story that would not be told with care. That was fine. When the captain's voice came over the intercom, the father listened without tension. Information passed. Time passed. Later, when the seatbelt sign turned off, people stood too quickly, reaching for bags before it was necessary. The father stayed seated. He waited until there was space, then stood without apology. He lifted the backpack easily now, not because it was lighter, but because he no longer adjusted himself around it. He helped his daughter out of her seat, and she stepped into the aisle ahead of him, confident, unhurried. As they moved forward, someone bumped his shoulder. The person muttered an apology. The father nodded and kept moving. At the door, a crew member smiled at his daughter. "Have a good day," she said. "You too," the daughter replied. They stepped into the terminal. The noise returned. The pace quickened. People surged in all directions, pulled by schedules and urgency. The father did not pause to scan the room this time. He walked forward, guiding his daughter with a light hand. They blended into the movement without shrinking. Behind them, nothing marked their exit. No recognition. No gesture. No reversal of judgment. Ahead of them, the path was the same as it had always been. Uncertain. Unassisted. But something had changed. In the lounge, the father had made himself small to endure misunderstanding. Here, he did not. He did not expand either. He simply took the space his steps required. His daughter matched his pace. They disappeared into the crowd, not elevated, not erased, just present. And that was enough.